HumanOp represents kind of the culmination of a lifetime of just being inspired and also frustration of what keeps holding humanity back.
Hello, and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan. Today on the show, we have Wei Houng. Wei, how are you doing today?
I'm really good, especially after our pre-show warm-up.
Absolutely. Man, I say this, I don't know, every so often on episodes, and people will hear it, but you guys don't hear the stuff that happens before we hit record or anything. But legitimately, there are beautiful conversations that I've had where I go, God, we need to hit record. Like, all of this needs to be on here. And this was one of those. Like, we've literally been talking for like 40 minutes at this point. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be able to cover and a lot of stuff we're going to get into. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on was to be able to talk about the human connection within ourselves and how we relate to ourselves, how we figure out ourselves, and how that ties into our purpose. We're going to get into technology and all the other things that are in there. But why don't you kick us off? Why don't you tell us what you do for a living and what's one thing most people don't know about you that's maybe a little odd or bizarre?
Yeah, great question. I've been in this human optimization game we were just talking about now. I used to say the same number year after year until somebody called me out on it and said, "You've been saying that number for the last 5 years I've known you." I was like, "Do you never increase that number?" I was like, "You're right." And so at last, when I checked last, I've been at this human optimization game now for over 31 years now. And a lot of it was driven by what I dealt with, as a kid in junior high, feeling like a lot of kids. I was being bullied. I didn't feel like I fit in, and so they got to a point where I thought there was something wrong with me. Right. I'm one of the co-founders of our company called HumanOp Technologies. HumanOp is short for human optimization, and we have a patented human assessment technology that is only patented because it's not based on psychology. Right. It's based on physics and math and science, and that's how we were able to kind of get away with patenting. Well, not get away with. We did do it. Patenting assessment technology. But before we get into that, there's one thing that really kind of helped facilitate this that a lot of people, well, some people know, but a lot of people don't know, is that I spent a lot of years in the spiritual community to kind of truly explore the esoteric side, because my background is computer science engineering. So I had a lifetime of just being on the technical left brain side of things, science and grounded methodologies and all this jazz. And so when I was trying to see all that is available in this world, I got deep into what people will say the woo community, right? And there was one point where and there's nothing wrong with these teachers because they have a lot more faith and trust than I do. But it's not like I was skeptical about things. I just have that kind of mind. I want to understand it. So in the case, one day, if I want to teach this to somebody, I can have the confidence to understand both the left, the right brain, every possible facet of how to help people embrace what I'm talking about, right? And when it came to energy work and energy healing and hypnotherapy and all those different things, I would get to a point with every teacher, and I've had many, where I would ask so many questions about, why does this work? How does this work? Why does this work? Until finally, the last teacher I said, she was frustrated like my parents were and said, "Wei, it just is, okay? It just is." And I say, ugh. Then it just took me back to my traumas as a youth. It's like telling me to shut up. It just is, okay? Why? It just is. Okay, fine. So at this point, done with college and everything, I have my UCLA alumni card. I said, you know what? I'm going to go figure this out myself. And so I never knew how to use the alumni card until then. I was like, oh, you mean I can go back to the UCLA engineering library and just hang out there? And it's like, well, yeah, you're alumni. I was like, great. So I go in there, and I think if you add up all the hours I was going back and forth, just looking into reopening the books on quantum physics, thermodynamics, the meaning of the universe, instead for a school project, it was for my own personal understanding of why something that is so seemingly anti-science really isn't anti-science. It's just another language to explain what science is also trying to explain, right? If you add up all the hours, I think it was like almost like a week. Like I was there for like a straight week. Nice. If I went there 24 hours for a whole, 7 times 24, whatever that is, right? what is that does 168 hours or something like that. So and what I came out with was a deeper understanding just simply on how to explain things like prana. How does the directing of the energy work, and how does energy behave? What happens when a human being dies? What are we talking about when we say like, oh, a soul, or whatever the case may be? It's not like I don't believe in it. I just like to have multiple ways of explaining it to help serve a larger segment of humanity. And that's really what drives me to do, is not to debunk anything, but to help more people understand the miracle of what happens every single day, and not deny us just because it's not part of our reality, deny us the potential of being able to embrace and accept more that can potentially augment our own personal lives. And so that's kind of a long way to say that might be something like a lot of people don't know, just kind of how I hated school. And then I went back to school to use the school, but use it in the way I wanted to use it to help explain something in my life that nobody else was able to explain for me. And now when I go out and I connect with people who are, in the esoteric world, and I get asked to be on their podcast because they say, can you come on my podcast of Reiki healing and energy and explain what you just explained to me? Because I've never been able to do that. And this is exactly what the world needs to hear. I was like, sure. So, yeah.
And all of that ties directly into what you're doing too. Like I can relate with you on that. I never went to college. I ended up in a few college classes because I partied the night before. I was like, fuck it, why not? But like, never officially went.
But you did go.
I did. There were I went to a few different universities, in fact.
There you go.
I think even one or two of them, I answered a question. They were like,
who are you?
Like, never mind. So yeah. That was way back in the day. So, but I also didn't like school. I hated school, but I was an art kid. So I was one of those kids in high school. Like I would just raise my hand and be like, I got a project. They'd be like, go ahead. And I would just live in the art room because that was what I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And got out of school and went deeper into more understanding and more discovering and more just unpacking as many different books and teachers and all these things.
That. Yeah.
Because there was an actual pull to do it instead of going, well, learn math, learn history, the history we want you to learn, learn this and learn that. Yeah. And it's like, I want to learn the things I want to learn. So I appreciate that. And I think that's a thing about you and I, that's part of our makeup. And it's just like our self-expression to be able to say, well, this is the thing that gets me excited. I'm going to dig in and nerd out on it.
Yeah.
And that's important, but this is also our design. So how does that tie in to the work that you do at the company to be able to help people understand where they're like, oh, I nerd out about this thing, but I never thought I could do anything because the capitalistic society we live in says I can't make any fucking money being a creative or a musician or whatever,
Oh my God. Yeah. Don't even get me started about that piece.
We're on a podcast. Please get started.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing, before I get into like what ultimately, I mean, because HumanOp represents kind of the culmination of a lifetime of just being inspired and also frustration of what keeps holding humanity back. Right. Yeah. Before I go there, I used to be, before the pandemic, I used to be asked to go do career day for a lot of schools because I was the only one that would volunteer and say yes to saying, can you come in and talk about entrepreneurship? I'm like, sure, because that's the wild card, because I'm not a firefighter. I'm not a banker. I'm not a doctor. I'm an entrepreneur. And then all the kids go, what is that? And it's like, does anybody know what that is? Right. Yeah. And so I say, we solve problems in the world in exchange for money. How about that? Mm-hmm. Right. And then, but there's always a fun exercise I like to do in line with what you just said, which is like, okay, how many of you have ever been told that you can't make money doing something, anything? And I remember the last time I said that, asked that, it was in a grade school. They were super young. And every kid raised their hand already. At that age, they were already being told to some capacity that they can't make money or do what they want to do in life doing certain things, right? Funny side note, the teacher raised her hand too.
Awesome. Well, yeah, she's not making anything.
Yeah. She's like, and it was really interesting because the distortion that happens in our homes, and I'm not, I mean, I always say this, like, disclaimer, make sure you make sure whatever you share about today's, don't make your parents hate me. But there's a distortion of culture and societal because we're such a melting pot here. We don't know where it's coming from. But there was a kid that raised his hand, and I mean, it's so obvious that it's not true, but he still kind of subscribed to it. Why? Because it's his parents. It's like, what did your parents tell you? And it's just, I picked the Asian kid in the back with glasses because, hey, you look like me when I was little. Okay, I'm going to pick on you first. And he said, music. I'm like, what? No, really? Seriously? Music? And then I polled the room and I said, hey, how many of you know somebody in this world? And just a side note, celebrities are people too, that make money doing music. Every kid raised their hand. And it was like a shock to him, even though it was it seems like it's common knowledge, right? But we don't know what happens at home, right? We don't know how kids are being nurtured against their nature, and more of that later, right?
Yeah.
And so then I asked him, well, what kind of music do you like? He goes, EDM. I was like, have you ever heard of Deadmau5? Have you ever heard of the, I started naming off all these EDM, like super like successful. And he goes, yeah. I says, do you think they do it for free? He goes, well, no. I was like, okay, so it's a different thing. Now, you always get these kids that say, I love ice cream. But even then I said, okay, how many think you can't make money doing ice cream? And then every kid raised their hand. It's like, okay, well, I'll tell you something. There's some Asian countries that will literally pay you just to watch you eat ice cream.
Yeah.
The little girl's like, oh, I say, but I got to warn you. Be careful what you wish for. You might not like ice cream after that if you make a career out of it, right? And then she goes, no, I'll never stop. And I looked at the teacher. Teacher's like, so, but yeah, so part of my journey is that what compelled me to really kind of land in this. And I got to say, first and foremost, that I'm so married to my purpose because I know how much people spend their entire lives finding that purpose, the reason for being. And sometimes they never find it. I'm at a point where I said, I am not going to squander the luck, the gratitude, and the fortune I've had on being able to find that as early as I did. And a lot of it was through the struggles I've had to go through to try to figure me out, right? And it got to a point where when I finally hit a plateau and I said, oh my God, I think I kind of understand why I'm here. I said, but why did I have to go through all this catharsis? There must have been, 3 to 5 times I should have left this planet, but I didn't, right? The universe deemed it was not your time, either by my own hand or by the hand of the byproduct of a choice that I made, right? And so thus began the journey of how do I inspire people to elevate and change and get in alignment with themselves without having to do it from catharsis. Because the reality is, you and I have dealt with catharsis in our life. We've hit lows that some people don't bounce back from like we have. So that means not everybody's built the same way. Resilience and adaptability, that's Darwinism right there. So how do we combat that and empower people to not have to be stove touchers in order to incite change? But more importantly, recognize that, hey, if you allow yourself to go to that cathartic place, you may not come back as easily as somebody else that you've observed. So what can we do to that? And so HumanOp is really, our technology is designed to kind of take the guesswork of how one can get access back to the blueprint of optimal existence. The reason why we lose contact with that is because of the moment we're born, we're pulled in a billion directions. We've got environmental influence, societal, cultural, and everything like that, and it pulls us off of our blueprint. The beautiful thing about our technology is a simple assessment technology that gives every human being a unique result. No two human beings, 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion different results. Why? Because it's based on the unique nature of that human being. And so what really drives our technology, I'm looking to kind of position our company as a generational company. After you and I are gone, our kids' kids are gone, that HumanOp continues to be a part of elevating humanity and helping humanity become what we're ultimately best designed to do, becoming stewards of the planet, caretakers of the planet. There's no other being on the planet, no other animal on the planet that is better suited to be a caretaker of the planet than we are. And yet here we are pillaging it. Yeah. And we're like destroying it. I mean, the plot twist of the whole COVID pandemic thing, we're the virus.
Yeah, we have.
That's the plot twist.
What a weird a juxtaposition of it. Of we are the ones who can both heal and harm, and we do that in all of our relationships. We do that to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Even that kid being told you can't make money with music.
Yeah,
you can, but you can also make money with other things. And time out. Let's look at what the fuck you're just talking about. Your passion is this, and you're saying, well, the system of the world that we live in says I need to make this. Let's forego that and get back to this and figure out how do you do that.
Right.
There's something, and I've thought of this as soon as you said this. A friend of mine and I, we're both working on albums. We're holding each other accountable and like working through our stuff and
very cool.
Nerding out about sidechain compression and just loads of nonsense. To us, it's fucking fun. But he shared something with me the other day that there was somebody talking about how I believe it's Spotify, because they're like the main culprit with this. They figured out the exact amount of plays that you need, streams every single month to make minimum wage. Do you want to take a stab in the dark at how many streams you need monthly as an artist to make minimum wage?
I know you're asking because it's probably something redonkulous. It's like, what, 1 million?
567,000.
567,000. Oh my God, that's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot to make minimum wage.
On just off of Spotify. Just
off of that.
Okay.
So, but that can still deter people to go, oh, well, if I just want to make music and just stream it, I guess I can. And they'll stop there. Other people will go, fuck that, watch. And they'll go do things and they'll figure out different ways. But
well, it's just like a investment portfolio. You diversify, right?
Yeah, well, multiple streams of income.
Right.
I mean, that's the true definition of an entrepreneur.
Right.
You just make different streams of
different
income.
Profit centers.
Yeah, exactly. Which my friend and I talking about that, we understand that because we're multi-passionate and creatives and entrepreneurs. And that's why as a 41-year-old man, I have like this many friends, like,
that's okay. Yeah. You are friends with the universe of music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But in all reality, I think there's a thing to that where people can buy into a story. And that story is told to them. They go, oh, well, that's not what I want to do. Or yes, I guess I should do that. And then they go deeper down that. Because of what you were saying, even before we hit record, people don't know. If somebody says, just be you, like going out on a date with somebody, just be you. What the fuck?
Really? Who am I? Like, who am I?
What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You spin them even harder at that point because they're like, geez, now it's even harder to do this.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to give a secret sauce or go into all the depths of everything, but from a higher level, like if somebody's saying, all right, I hear what you guys are saying, and maybe I'm interested in the thing that you do or what your company does. But overall, like I'm just interested in understanding more about myself so I can stop hating everything else that's going on because I feel I'm stuck doing this and blah, blah, blah. And just trying to get the thing that actually gives them the vitality back. Yeah. So what does that look like?
Yeah, that the simple word is objectivity. The thing is, we've been in an effort to survive. Okay. Survival for human being to perpetually live in survival mode is perpetually living a life through judgment and subjectivity. But that's kind of how we survived growing up. We had to subjectively look at things and define things through the context of our world and what we grew up with in order to figure out the best way to navigate it. The problem is most of us haven't been given the opportunity to graduate from that subjective foundational understanding of self to define who we are, right? What we've been able to help people do is then graduate from that and transition to defining what. And what that means is, how do you understand yourself objectively without meaning, judgment, bias, or subjectivity of through the lens of my mom, my dad, my teachers, my friends, my culture, because most people, they struggle with that. Like you were saying, it's like, just be you. That is probably one of the hardest questions to ask anybody. Just be you. It's like, well, that actually is dependent on whether or not you yourself can define who you or what you are, as we like to call it. And saying that there's a distinction between who and what, who is defined by your experiences, your traumas, your parents, your society, your culture. What you are is how nature naturally designed you to be. For example, we all already know how that works. We go into nature, we all look at a tree and we can uniformly all say, that's a tree, that's a leaf. And this is what that leaf does for that tree. This is grass, it's green. I don't like green, but I'm not going to get angry at grass for being green because it just is. Imagine us being able to look in the mirror and say the exact same thing about ourselves. When we can go back to how we survived. So let's kind of roll it back and talk about some really cool, fun trivia. Modern language, I'll give you a quick guess. You know, a lot of people know it already, but how long do you think modern language as we know it today as a means of pattern and communication, pattern recognition, communication, right? That includes grunts and clicks and specific patterns. Modern language, how long do you think that existed for human beings?
Handful of thousands of years.
Yeah, about 50,000 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. If we look at how long human beings have been on the planet, we've been on the planet for 2 million years. So the question is that people have to remember to ask themselves, so if we didn't have language beyond the 50,000, what did we do for 1.95 million years? We looked into nature. We survived by looking into nature, understanding what we looked at, looking at each other and understand I can get along with you and not with you, not by language, not by words, but by how we each all physically show up in the world. This is why when they finally laid down country lines in the world, right, before there were no country lines, everybody was just tribing and nomadic, right? But when they finally decided, okay, let's lay down country lines, it's not after they laid down country lines, people started to kind of look similar to each other. We were already doing that because we naturally understood, like everything else in nature, how to naturally tribe with what resonates with us. Our technology is kind of like a revival of that. It's an opportunity, we're created an opportunity for human beings to reconnect back to nature, bypass the distorted rhetoric of society and culture and language. But now we do have a beautiful tool called language. So instead of doing grunts and clicks to kind of figure out what nature's telling us, we can be even more precise. And that's what we've done. We've taken that baseline built into our DNA, our genetics from last 2 million years of how to connect with nature and how to see each other through the objectivity of nature. And we've defined it through language, objective language, so that we don't have to ever go back to saying, okay, well, I mean, it's like this. It's like most of us have grown up to some degree where parents or teachers or society has pushed us in a direction that, like, or manipulate us, whatever, to do something that deep down inside was like, that doesn't resonate with me. Mm-hmm. School doesn't resonate. At least the way school is doesn't resonate with me. And it's because our core, the nature of ourselves, is trying to communicate something to us. Before, though, we didn't have any way to quantify it. We didn't have any way to define it. But now we do. This technology, 20 years of research, we patented about 10 years ago. For the last 20 years, we've been doing it on a consultative model. And what frustrated me more than anything was that, we were doing it behind a huge paywall. Only those who could afford it could have access to this. So who did we have? Celebrities, pro athletes, Olympians, Fortune 10, companies, having access to this. But in my mind, what deep down inside is like, this is like the holy grail of human understanding. Every human being needs to have access to this. And that's why last year we pivoted hard and we just made it freely available on a basic level for everyone.
And that's the way to do it. I mean, accessibility is so huge. I joke with people at different times that I'm so tired of the coaches who coach coaches about other coaches, about coaching coaches who coach cockroaches. And they sell every fucking thing at $10,000 or more. And then as soon as they sell you something, you're instantly dropped into a funnel and a whole fucking scheme to get you to buy more things because you didn't get enough, and FOMO, and it's all manipulation and just going at your nervous system.
Yeah, distorted
When this
capitalism.
stuff, yeah, and this stuff needs to be accessible to people. I still think there's a little bit to be said of that saying, and I heard this a long time ago: if people don't pay, they're not going to pay attention.
Yeah, they have skin in the game.
Sure, but
Right.
you also, if somebody is in such a spot where they are hungry for it, they are ready to do the work, and it doesn't matter. Like if they don't have the money, don't let that stop them.
Yeah.
Help them actually be able to do the work and get into it, and that ripple effect will change throughout. I think even you talk about parents or people that I'm glad you said manipulation too, because that's exactly where my mind went, was like sometimes they will be like, well, I couldn't do it, so mini me should, and this
Right.
is what I want with your life.
Yeah.
And there are also some basic things where I think from a parental perspective, and I don't have any kids, but my parents did things to me because they thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
based on
I mean,
how
they're not
they
malintended. They're not manipulating out of like that's just like they're trying to mess you up. They're doing the best they can, and that's what
Correct.
everybody's doing, right?
Yeah. And the more that we learn about ourselves, I think that those people can then say, oh, well, maybe you're a little different. Like
Yeah.
I'm an emotional person.
Yeah.
And just to use my dad as an example, he's a logical person. Like he's a thinker. I'm a feeler. And for 35 years, he was like, think, use your brain. Literally took me to the age of 35 to go, hold up, Pop.
Yeah.
I have to feel everything first
Yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't understand it. And we had a great conversation to say,
Yeah.
like, I have to feel it and then think about it. You have to think about it and then maybe at some point potentially feel it. But like, that's way far off.
Yeah.
But those people will say, oh, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I think this is the way to go about it. And we all do that, where
Yeah.
it sounds like this approach is more so I have a better understanding of myself. Therefore, I have different questions to ask of other people to learn more about them. So what sort of stuff have you seen of the people that have gone through the younger versions of it, the newer versions of all of it, like some of those stories, to be able to say, you know what, the way that I moved about in the world was different than my way of being now because of how I am and what I understand.
Yeah, no, we just I think it was last week, we had that workshop about communication styles, and our technology defines that. I mean, there's a bunch of categories it defines, and one of them, what you're talking about, is so intelligent. And that's the cool thing about our technology. It validates, for most people who are practicing self-awareness, it validates so much. And there's something about when science validates someone, they're more likely to lean into it more versus another human being telling them and validating it for them. And what you were describing, for example, is you being is like the perfect word. You're emotionally centered. That's your communication style. For you, it's all about feeling into the decision, right? How does it feel for you? And that part of you also is it likes the tactile things. You know, you're like a feel shopper. Like you have to touch it and feel it before you can buy it, right?
Furniture,
And
butt test.
Yeah, exactly. And so for you, like in the face of conflict, you tend to emote first because it's about the emotions that help you process through things. And it sounds like your dad is the other communication style that we call intellectual centered. Those are the people who ask a ton of questions. Things need to make sense before they take action on anything. For you, if it feels good, then you're probably going to take action on it. For your dad, he probably has to do his due diligence. He has to ask his questions. And then finally, when that all makes sense to him, then he'll take action. Nothing wrong with either. It's just unique to that human being. And there's a whole sequence. There's a whole decoding sequence. There's 4 of them, actually. There's instinctual center, which is all about the gut. And there's also moving center, those people who need to move into their decision, right? And we're a combination of all 4. It just depends on the order. And so that's our unique process of making decisions, learning, and going through life and connecting to the moment. So, you know, that's just an example of what our technology has been able to do. Especially, I just had this conversation with a couple the other day where they were struggling on understanding each other because when they didn't realize that they each had very different levels of refinement. They had different motivational drivers that drove them. One of them didn't need the spotlight, didn't need attention. She thrived in being able to hold space for people. Her partner actually was fed by being able to share their gifts in the spotlight, to present and to do all those different and perform, right? And so she didn't understand why he needed to do all that. And then he didn't understand why she couldn't understand him, right? But when they had that time to access the results of their technology, which only takes 10 minutes, it literally takes 10 minutes, and it's all in your app or on your platform. And then they dove into it, and then I had some time with them to talk to them to help them get a deeper understanding of it. She said this was the most, going home, that this was the most alive he's been in so long because he had zombied out in life, basically. Right. So these, and don't even get me started of the work we've been able to do with young adults and kids who are struggling to just figure themselves out and fit in to this world. Right. For a long time, I was working with these red zone kids, and I call them red zone because we're talking about drugs, alcohol, and suicide. And the sad thing is, because we're not your traditional therapist, psychologist, counselor, whatever the case may be, we end up being like, nothing's working. Then they get a referral to us, right? We're like the last resort. And I remember I had this kid who, was talking about suicide every day. And then his parents didn't know what to do. They had a lot of money. They were well-to-do, but no resource was helping. And then they got a referral to me from a friend of mine who knew the parents. And my requisite for those types of dynamics is the whole family takes the assessment, so the whole family can get to see how unique everyone actually is. Yeah. And sure enough, the parents, they were built like high performance engine. Dad was a Ferrari, mom was a Maserati, and sure enough, they gave birth to a Prius. And they were trying to run that Prius like they run their own lives. And the kid was burning out, and he just started high school. And what happened was, when we went through a part, there's a section there around the motivational drivers where it illuminates you need to have an average amount of mental engagement in order to be healthy. What happens is, if it's too elevated, then it's hard to focus. And if it gets super elevated, so just to give you a little context, the healthy range we like to see is anywhere from 18 to 25 voices, right? Voices, so to speak, chatter, so that there's engagement, there's, stuff that you can do. Too low, then you're totally disengaged from life. That a lot of people who over meditate, that happens. Then there are people who are checked out of their jobs and they just don't want to engage anymore. So they're just disengaged. And this is how we help, organizations reintroduce higher levels of engagement. We identify those who are disengaged and we optimize them, right? So the kid had 42 voices. And I told the parents in that meeting, and the parents goes, that doesn't make any sense. And the kid stood up and said, that makes 100% sense. This is why I want to die. I can't escape my voices no matter where you guys take me. And they just sat there and they're like, oh. And so we began working together, and it was such an acute situation. I was seeing him twice a week. But the thing is, what I love of our technology, because we take the guesswork out of everything and create a blueprint that's unique for every human being, we take the complexity out of the solution. See, our philosophy is this: nature in general, life in general, is either easy or hard, but it fluctuates, right? Life gets hard, life gets easy, life gets hard. Simplicity and complexity is not part of nature. That's a human-made construct. Complexity was introduced to help establish value for a human being doing a simple task so they can kind of preserve their place in the corporate world. The more complicated they made the process that they're responsible for, and they're the only ones that can execute it, well, guess what? Job security. Right? Yeah. But if you look at it, most of these types of solutions, and you take the complexity out of it, it's actually really simple. Nothing in life, nothing in nature is complicated. Everything is simple. Human beings like to make it complicated to establish self-value and self-worth. So what our technology does, it takes the complexity out of what it means to optimize yourself and lean into your most optimal version of yourself, your nature. Create a simplicity of the understanding around it. But it doesn't mean we take away the hardness and the difficulty of doing that, because now you're fighting against society. You're fighting against the matrix to be able to get to your core natural self. And so what I said, the parents said, well, what does he have to do? It's like, feed his drivers, and only his drivers. He's trying to feed too many drivers right now, and that's why it's going crazy. And they're like, that's it? I was like, that's it. I said, okay. So for the first couple of weeks, we were just saying, every day he came in, it's like, what did you do to feed your drivers today? What did you do to feed your drivers today? Right? There's only two, right? And then 2 weeks later, stopped talking about suicide. 5 months later, became a 5.0 student.
Nice.
And then by the time he got through high school, he got into the college of his choice, studied abroad, like he was saying, since day one, and then came back and he graduated now from college, got this beautiful card from him thanking me for like helping him on so many different levels. And then it's those things. And all I did was put a real accurate mirror of himself and helped him understand and use language to define himself so that he can then go out into the world and educate the world around him about his unique nature. So he never had to buy into a rhetoric of having to fit in somewhere just to be liked, just to be accepted. But the engineer in me over the last decade or so has been looking for that one time where a human being will take it and it's completely off. But because it's based on things you can't lie about, like your physical nature, like what color your eyes, what color your hair, I mean, all that means something. Nature gave us those clues to understand ourselves and understand others. We've just been ignoring it for the past 50,000 years because we thought language was a solution to it all. And now we've become kind of like atrophied around that muscle of understanding and seeing into nature. I mean, we're still capable of it. I mean, we can look into nature and define things like a rock and the color of things, and know that you don't go hug a cactus, right? But we've forgotten how to do that for ourselves. And it's all there. Fortunately, right now, we have a technology that can help define that for people so they don't have to guess anymore. We can get back to connecting with nature.
I wonder how quickly after language started to really form that shift happened. Like, I
think it was almost immediately. I think Greek philosophers would laugh at humanity, saying language was invented to lie to ourselves and others. That's really kind of, and it's still being used today, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, like you and I were talking about, it's just a tool. So why not use the beautiful, powerful tool of language to define nature in a way so that we can be connected back to that and see each other objectively through that lens again? That's how we were able to survive for 2 million years, not language.
Yeah. And even thinking from the tool perspective, like we ourselves are a tool.
Yeah.
Like we're
100%.
a soul, a spirit within this organism, and we use it.
Mm-hmm.
But we oftentimes don't actually think about that. Which it's funny to me how over close to 200 episodes at this point, everything ties back to self-awareness. Like the more aware you are of things, sometimes it's maddening because the more aware you are, the fucking more aware you are.
Yeah.
The more aware you are. Like,
once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's what we tell people all the time. We tell people that all the time.
But being able to understand that we have these deep innate pieces to us that we can then use and at least look at and say, well, what is this? What are you trying to tell me? What do I do with it? So, and I appreciate you going through all the work, doing all the things, understanding what your purpose is and not shying away from that and diving deeper into it. One of the things that I've understood about you that you haven't even said at all, but you understand, to me, it seems like you understand the importance of it, but you also understand that you literally have to put one step in front of the other and then help other people do the same thing, because sometimes we can look at it and go, oh my God, this is so big. It's like, yeah, kind of, but calm down. Stay right here. Let's just move along. And then you'll start to add things up. I love how that stuff works out. Like you're just going to keep building on it.
Yeah.
So,
well, a lot of people do that. They come to us, and all of us here at HumanOp, we have such big visions of what we want to do for the planet, what we want to do for humanity. And a lot of people, they get overwhelmed and says, oh, I can't be like you guys. We're not asking you to. We're doing it because we can. Yeah. What we're saying is this, is that if all you do every day is invest in being the best human being you can be, you are already contributing to making this world a better place. If you're doing it from an objective standpoint, the way we're talking about it, so that you kind of learn that about yourself, there's a concept that I spent years traveling around the world talking about called nodal impact. Every human being is a node, and every time, if you look into the concepts around quantum entanglement, no matter who it is that you engage with, you're going to shift and add more color to your own frequency output. Like you and I, after today's conversation, we're already going to go into the world differently than we did before we came into this conversation. And the next people or next set of people we come in contact with, we're going to influence them. We're going to impact them just from the quantum entanglement you and I experienced, to kind of exchange the knowledge, information, everything that we're learning here. It's just another form of frequency and energy.
Yeah.
And that then creates this ripple effect in our ecosystem, right? Because all these aha moments left and right. It's like, oh yeah, that, oh yeah, this. And then we take that and we go right outside and we
Yep.
just bathe the next person in that same frequency and energy. What doesn't mean matter what we say, we're going to make an impact that way. So that's what we say. Just be the best human being you can right now. Don't worry about doing the big things to save the world. And already you're making a huge difference.
And what a great way to put that. I've appreciated this conversation so much. I'm sure my hope is that somebody's listening to this goes, you know what? Today, up until this point, has been this type of day. But from this point on, the rest of the day will be this, because I want it to be that. And some sort of hope to it, but not only a hope, just an understanding that we are uniquely us and we don't have to be anybody else. We shouldn't be. The world tells us differently. You should be doing these things. You should make all this money. You should have a white picket fence and you should do this and do that. And like, nonsense. It's whatever you want it to be, but it's also really whatever is deep inside of us to do. So, man, I appreciate you being on and talking about all of this.
Yeah, my
What's
pleasure.
that piece of advice that you'd give to somebody that's on their path towards self-mastery?
You know, we're at a point right now, we're about to come out beta stage. So I'm super excited to be able to say this, because whereas before I would find some anecdotal thing where it's not really actionable. And the beautiful thing is I insisted that this version that we come out, there is a free version of it. I would say go take our assessment. It's free and it's based on physics and science, and it will give you a unique set of results so that you could today immediately go and get a profound resonant understanding of self that you can start to lean into. And it's not only answering the question of what you are, but it's actually giving you steps on what to do with that. And it's free. That's the way I wanted it to be, because that way we can help more people without even having to, like, you have to call us and schedule a time. Forget it.
Yeah.
Just go to our site, jump in, understand. And if you want to get more, then yeah, you can certainly do more. But the basics, we didn't hold back. We're giving stuff that people used to pay us 6 figures for, and we're giving that away. Why? Because this is probably the fastest path we can do to help as many people as possible be the best human they can be, so the ripple effect can help make this world better, right?
Awesome way to put that, man. So before I let you go, where can people find you, and where can they connect with you, and where can they get that? Where can they go take that test?
Yeah, well, you and I talked about the miracle of human connection. I love the miracle of human connection. Because if you think about it, 8 billion people on the planet, what are the chances of connecting with any human being on any level, right? And we just have to remember to let go of the ego and the arrogance of attaching some kind of like a label of what that connection is supposed to be. Oh, I'm supposed to hire him. Oh, this is supposed to be a client. No, you're just another human being connecting with me. And let's just look forward to how things will unfold. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, but you can go to humanop.com. And it will direct you to wherever you want to go, whether you have a business or whether it's for yourself. There's 2 pathways you can go down. If you're local as to us here in California, Silicon Valley, come in for our free workshops that we do every week just to teach people how to use the data that they get from our results. And it's free. Just come in and learn. You can meet us in person and everything like that. If not, then just reach out on LinkedIn and we can coordinate and just connect and see where it goes from there. I mean, that's really what I'm all about right now. I'm at a point in my life where it's less about building that huge empire of business, but rather, how do we create an impact? How do we create legacy? How do I put it forward? And we define those intervals of life too, by the way. So like, for example, Nick, you're in the interval of empire creation. You're stepping into adulthood right now, actually. 43 is adulthood. That's what we found in our research. So, hey, welcome to adulthood. I'm actually just stepping out of that interval into what we call pay it forward. So that's all defined in our research and our work and our science and the technology that we do. So just dive in, join our world. And if this resonates with you, we will be forever friends to be able to help anybody who wants to have that level of self-awareness. Anybody who's a fan of your podcast, Nick, I'll tell you, I mean, that's probably them.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you being on today and the depth that we've been able to get into. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been so fun.